magical cornfield music.
It ain't no game out here in the cornfield. It's real. Ain't no game out here in the cornfield.
After considering the matter carefully, Tip decided that the best place to locate Jack would be at the bend in the road a little way from the house. So he started to carry his man there, but found him heavy and rather awkward to handle. After dragging the creature a short distance, Tip stood him on his feet, and by first bending the joints of one leg, and then those of the other, at the same time pushing from behind, the boy managed to induce Jack to walk to the bend in the road. It was not accomplished without a few tumbles, and Tip really worked harder than he ever had in the fields or forest. But a love of mischief urged him on, and it pleased him to test the cleverness of his workmanship. "Jack's all right and works fine," he said to himself, panting with the unusual exertion. But just then he discovered that the man's left arm had fallen off in the journey, so he went back to find it. Tip reflected. "It's a hard thing to be a marble statue," he thought rebelliously, "and I'm not going to stand it. For years I've been a bother to her, she says, so she's going to be rid of me. Well, there's an easier way than becoming a statue. No boy could have any fun forever standing in the middle of a flower garden. I'll run away, that's what I'll do. And I may as well go before she makes me drink that nasty stuff in the kettle." He waited until the snores of the old witch announced that she was fast asleep, and then he arose softly and went to the cupboard to find something to eat. "No use starting the journey without food," he decided, searching upon the narrow shelves. He found some crusts of bread, but he had to look into Mommy's basket to find the cheese she had brought from the village. While turning over the contents of the basket, he came upon the pepper box. The boy, small and rather delicate in appearance, seemed somewhat embarrassed at being called father by the tall, awkward, pumpkin-headed man. But to deny the relationship would involve another long and tedious explanation. So he changed the subject by asking abruptly, "Are you tired?" "Of course not," replied the other. "But," he continued after a pause, "it is quite certain I shall wear out my wooden joints if I keep on walking." Tip reflected as they journeyed on that this was true. He began to regret that he had not constructed the wood limbs more carefully and substantially. Yet how could he ever have guessed that the man he had made merely to scare old Mombi with would be brought to life by means of a magical powder contained in an old pepper box? So he ceased to reproach himself and began to think. The sawhorse, finding himself alive, seemed even more astonished than Tip. He rolled his naughty eyes from side to side, taking a first wondering look of the world in which he had now so important an existence. Then he tried to look at himself, but he had indeed no neck to turn, so that in the endeavor to see his body he kept circling round and round without catching even a glimpse of it. His legs were stiff and awkward, for there were no knee joints in them, so that presently he bumped against Jack Pumpkinhead and set that personage tumbling upon the moss that lined the roadway. Tip became alarmed at this accident, as well as the persistence of the sawhorse in prancing around in a circle, so he called out, "Whoa! Whoa there!" The sawhorse paid no attention whatever to this command, and the next instant brought one of his wooden legs down upon Tip's foot so forcibly that the boy danced away in pain to a safer distance. At daybreak, Tip was awakened by the Pumpkinhead. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, bathed in a little brook, and then ate a portion of his bread and cheese. Having thus prepared for a new day, the boy said, "Let us start at once. 9 miles is quite a distance, but we ought to reach the Emerald City by noon if no accidents happen." So the Pumpkinhead was again perched upon the back of the Sawhorse, and the journey was resumed. Tip noticed that the purple tint of the grass and trees had now faded to a dull lavender, and before long this lavender appeared to take on a greenish tinge that gradually brightened as they drew nearer to the great city where the Scarecrow ruled. The little party had traveled but a short 2 miles upon their way when the road of yellow brick was parted by a broad and swift river. Tip was puzzled how to cross over. I suppose every reader of this book knows what a scarecrow is, but Jack Pumpkinhead, never having seen such a creation, was more surprised at meeting the remarkable king of the Emerald City than by any other one experience of his brief life. His Majesty the Scarecrow was dressed in a suit of faded blue clothes, and his head was merely a small sack stuffed with straw upon which eyes, ears, a nose, and a mouth had been rudely painted to represent a face. The clothes were also stuffed with straw, and that so unevenly or carelessly that His Majesty's legs and arms seemed more bumpy than was necessary. Upon his hands were gloves with long fingers, and these were padded with cotton. Wisps of straw stuck out from the monarch's coat.
This is the pixel art that I made. If you like a request for a story, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.